Let's be real. When you hear the word logic, you probably think of some dusty academic subject, right? Well, forget that. Today, we're opening up a practical toolkit for your mind, a set of powerful instruments for thinking clearly and effectively. Let's get to it.
Think about it. We are just swimming in information, opinions, arguments, all day, every day. How in the world are you supposed to figure out what's real and what's just, well, noise? This is the fundamental problem that logic was designed to solve, and today we're going to see exactly how it works.
All right, so here's our plan. We'll start with the big picture, the toolkit itself. Then we're going to break down its three key parts: connection, concepts, and proofs. And finally, we'll put it all back together.
So, let's imagine your mind is a workshop, right? To build anything worthwhile, you need good tools. And logic gives you the absolute fundamentals for building thoughts that are clear, strong, and won't fall apart on you.
And here's the really cool part. This incredibly powerful toolkit, it all boils down to just three big ideas. That's it. Three core pillars that hold up everything else.
And here they are: connection, concepts, and proofs. Each one builds on the last, taking us from observing the world to understanding it, and finally, this is the crucial part, to verifying that our understanding is actually true. Let's dig into that first one.
Okay, so our first tool doesn't actually start in our heads. Nope, it starts out there, in the real world. It's all about recognizing that reality has a structure, a kind of built-in logic of its own.
The formal term for this is connection. And really, all it means is that things and events out in the world are linked together in ways that aren't just random. Cause and effect is the perfect example. Some things just have to happen in a certain order. And this is where it gets really practical. You've probably heard people talk about the logic of the market or the logic of war. When they say that, they're acknowledging that there are these deep, underlying forces and structures at play. And often, they're way more powerful than what any single person intends to do. That's connection in action.
So, once we've seen the logic in the world, it's time to turn inward to the logic inside our own minds. This is where our second tool, concepts, comes into play.
This is what's sometimes called the logic of cognition. It's how we build our mental models of the world. We take what we observe through connection and we form ideas or concepts that are linked together logically to try and reflect that reality. So, how do we actually form these concepts?
It turns out it happens in two key ways. On one hand, you've got abstraction of identification. This is an active process. It's when we decide to treat different things as the same for a reason. Like a Granny Smith and a Red Delicious, they're different, but we create the category apples. On the other hand, you have abstraction of indistinguishability. This is more passive. We just notice that we can't really tell two things apart, like two grains of sand, so we group them together.
And this paints a brilliant picture of a concept's life. First, we establish its core, stable meaning. That's what eidetic semantics is all about. For a concept like justice, the core idea might be fairness. Then we adapt that core meaning for different situations. That's contextual semantics. So justice as fairness in a courtroom means following legal procedures. Justice between friends might mean splitting a check evenly. The context changes, but that core idea of fairness is still there.
Observing connections and forming concepts, that's a great start. But how do we know if our concepts are any good? How do we know if they're true? That brings us to our third and final tool, proofs. And this really is the heart of the matter. As the source material says, logic, at its very core, is the science of proof. It's not just about having ideas. It's about being able to rigorously show that those ideas hold up.
We have two main paths to get there. Deduction starts with a general rule, like all humans are mortal, and applies it to a specific case. Socrates is a human, to reach a certain conclusion. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Induction works the other way around. It observes a lot of specific facts. This one is white, that swan is white, to build a general theory. All swans are white.
The practical use of proofs is what we call argumentation. This is the skill of justifying your ideas and convincing others, not with emotion, but with significant, well-reasoned arguments.
And here is the key takeaway. When you build your case using the principles of logic, with clear concepts and valid proofs, you are creating the most powerful and persuasive form of argument that exists. So we've now looked at all three tools in our kit. Let's take a final moment to put them all together and see how they work as a complete system for thinking.
Here it is, your complete Thinker's Toolkit. It's a clear, three-step process.
First, you observe the necessary connections in the world around you. Second, you use that info to form clear, well-defined concepts. And third, you test those concepts by building solid proofs to make sure they line up with reality.
And this progression is our answer to that initial problem. It's how we systematically move from the chaos of raw information to a tested, proven, and reliable understanding. It is how we separate the truth from the noise.
The toolkit is now in your hands, so the only question left is, what will you build with it? What belief, idea, or argument are you going to examine first? Thanks for tuning in.